This is a special edition of Late Night Health. I'm Mark Alyn. During COVID and with people quarantining, with kids not interfacing with their friends, being taught by Zoom and other technologies, there's a problem in, I guess, going back to school, which they've done now. However, there's a subset of kids that we want to talk about. Our guest is Sasha Stern. He is the CEO of Goli, and we're going to find out about summer well-being for our kids, so that we can prepare them, I would assume, so they go back to school in the fall. Would that be fairly accurate, Sasha?
Yeah, I think uh, of our audience, comprising of neurodiverse kids, I think most families are excited to get their kids back into school. But I've talked to some of our customers who are all moms, and they they've expressed some of their kids have done better at home. And so, not everybody, but most of our families, they're ready to get back to school.
You say neurodiverse. Can you
Yeah,
explain that, please?
yeah, absolutely. Neurodiverse really just means your brain works differently, you think differently. It used to be that, well, there's this connotation that if you have a special needs child, that they are also learning disabled or mentally handicapped. And that's just not the case with all kids who have special needs. There's about a third of kids with autism have no learning disability. And I don't know what the proportion is with kids with a sensory processing disorder, but likewise, they have this. Their brain works differently. Their senses work a little bit differently, or sometimes very differently. But they're not learning disabled, and I think that's really the stem of this term of neurodiverse, where you've got neurotypical, where the brain's wired the way we kind of expect a human brain to be wired, and then we've got neurodiverse, where the brain's wired a little bit differently.
How did Sasha get into this?
I totally just stumbled into this. I've been in the tech scene in Denver and have supported a lot of entrepreneurs in the Colorado region. And I met the founder of Goalie, the inventor. His son had special needs. They were going to behavior therapy, and they learned about visual schedules and behavior therapy. So I'll tell you real quick about visual schedules. They're basically what they sound like. Neurodiverse kids often learn visually. So if you tell them an instruction like go get ready for bed, even though they've done it 1,000 times, they may not know what that means. They don't that instruction doesn't quite compute. So what a therapist will do is they'll break it out into smaller tasks. Go get ready for bed means brush your teeth, put on your pajamas, go find your book. And maybe if they have severe autism, it's not go brush your teeth, it's put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, brush your teeth, rinse your mouth, and so on. And if you show them a visual representation of all of these things, if you show them a visual icon of what brushing your teeth looks like, that actually triggers the brain for them in a different way. So people started putting together these visual schedules for kids. And he learned that his son responded really well to those visual schedules, but he couldn't really find a good tool to do that in terms of software. There's a lot of pen and paper tools and magnets and all these things, but his son really responds to tech. His son loves his tablet. So out of that, the Goalie business was formed, and just by virtue of being around in the technology community in Denver, I was invited to invest in the business, and I thought it was fascinating what they were working on. And over time, I got more and more involved, and eventually became CEO of the business.
Wow. Uh, but everybody learns differently. I mean, if you're learning software, some people want a one-on-one mentor, um, and I'm talking about, and I'm doing air quotes now, the normal people. Some
Mm-hmm.
people like to learn with that one-on-one mentor. Others like to read it. Others want that visual. Isn't this just part of that, or is it different than that?
I think it's along those lines, and I guess this leads back to that original question of, our families excited to get back to school. I think a lot of families realized that that the way school was teaching their kids wasn't the best way for their specific kid to learn, that they found a better way. So COVID gave them that opportunity that they otherwise would have never had to discover how their kid can learn best. Um, I think that people fall into different buckets of learning, and visual learners is kind of this big bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, well, how do we give kids tools to learn visually? We give them a lot of tools to learn their academics visually. So reading, writing, math, right? Those are presented to them on a board visually. But if you think about social skills and hygiene skills, when was the last time someone taught someone a hygiene skill visually? And that's what we're helping with in the behavior therapy realm.
One of the things that I think is important here is that not all of the neurodiverse kids are necessarily on the, and again air quotes, the spectrum, the autistic spectrum, or are they?
No, this is kind of meant to be this big umbrella. And I'm new to the community too, so I don't want to sound too much like an expert in that I don't have a child with special needs. But I think that it was
Excuse me. I think every child has special needs,
that's true. That's a good point.
right? Even when they're older,
That's
okay?
true. Yeah.
Everybody. And I also have, and I just talk, okay? So I have no background in this at all. But I think that every human being on the planet is on that autistic spectrum someplace or other.
Yeah, I think we're all learning through how do we best interact with the world around us. It's
Yeah,
a weird thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I, I, I think what you're describing and doing now, this is kind of this is what the special needs community is somewhat trying to normalize, which is um, that everybody's a little different. Some kids are more different than others, and let's have a term for them that doesn't necessarily put them down, but just recognizes that they're different. I think that's really where this push for neurodiversity comes from. Um, it's not necessarily a scientific term. There's no definition of who belongs and who doesn't belong.
Right.
It's a big umbrella.
But nobody's normal, right?
What is normal? Yeah.
Right. What is normal?
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably good in math because of your tech background, okay?
Yeah.
And math just, smacked me upside the head in school. Anyway, um, tell us the purpose of goalie. I mean, to me, it sounds like we have goals, and for our kids.
Yeah, that was the name of the that was where the name of the business came from, was to help kids reach their goals, or the goals that their parents set for them. Um, the actual mission of the business is to reduce the skill level needed to implement the science of behavior therapy. What we've learned over the last 20 years is that there is a right way and a wrong way of teaching social skills and hygiene skills and these things that a lot of people need extra instruction for. But the science isn't that accessible. And a typical parent isn't going to go get a master's degree in childhood development to learn how to do this. Therapists have all these tools at their disposal. They obviously have a huge amount of training as well. And the question is, can we package those tools in software so that it's just easy? Can we lead someone through a wizard where step by step we can create a routine and display the routine to the child in a way that the science says this is most effective? That's what we're trying to do. And that's really what the founder of the business, the inventor of Goalie, really struggled with. He and his wife went to behavior therapy and they learned about these visual schedules, and then and that their son responds super well visually to things. And then they went home and they tried to implement it, and nothing really stuck. It didn't work. So even though these were two parents with a lot of skills and frankly resources at their disposal, both high income earners, very well educated people, they were struggling making it work. So how does a how does a how does a family do this if they don't have as many resources as the inventor did? Um, and this is kind of like,
And you're talking about the inventor. So there's a technology that was created.
well, the technology was a digitization of this thing that therapists were already doing.
Okay.
So he basically said, okay, this behavior therapist is showing me how to create these visual schedules on pen and paper. What if I make an app for this? And so he made this app, and his son responded really well to the app. But eventually, we ran into another problem, which is that the phone on which the app lived was too distracting for his son, and the app really became counterproductive.
Uh-huh.
So fast forward to today, Goalie has a web portal for adults. That's where adults log in and do all their business. And then we actually have a dedicated device for kids. And the
So
device
it's
looks
not an
just like a cell phone.
iPad. It's not an Android. It's a dedicated unit of some kind.
Well, we start with Android and we customize it.
Right.
It looks just like a cell phone, but we yanked out all the distracting stuff. There's no web browser, there's no app store, there's no social media, there's no multitasking. We took out all these features that Android wants you to use to make you more productive, but for a 7-year-old, they don't help at all.
Gotcha. All right.
Right?
Got it. It seems to me that as we age and people with cognitive learning ability and understanding as they're aging, I think you have a secondary use for your technology in with people with dementia, Alzheimer's, because those, showing a video or a picture of a toothbrush and toothpaste, they may get that.
Oh yeah. So you're definitely describing where we're headed. Um, some of our functionality right now is scheduled routines. So for example, you can have a morning routine that starts at the same time every day. And that morning routine could be, you can customize it to be whatever you need, which could be take this medicine, then this medicine, then this medicine, then go bathe, or something like that. And it's not, honestly, I fear that we're almost putting a stigma around it by saying, oh, it's for neurodiverse or for people with dementia or some kind of diminishing brain capability. The reality is I use Google Calendar to keep myself organized on every task. And if I didn't have Google Calendar, I probably wouldn't have shown up to this interview on time. I wouldn't have known where to go, right? And so as a neurotypical adult who has good brain function, I use these types of tools to help me stay organized. And I think it's not far-fetched to think that really kind of like any adult or child could benefit from some basic tools to help them stay on track.
it's
So
a, it may be like a super calendar.
it's I like that term, by the way. You should join our marketing team, super calendar.
Yeah, I do.
I think of it like a basic calendar, like just one step at a time,
Right.
right? Because first I'm going to do this, and I'm going to show the thing that we show kids is a visual aid. So if it's brushing your teeth, you can show them a picture of brushing your teeth. We have an icon of a toothbrush, or you can even record a video of brushing your teeth. And then we show a visual timer, just kind of like a backwards counting clock that changes colors over time. And when you've got that step done, you hit the next button and you see the next step. And so it's not that visual schedules, by the way, are just kind of one part of our software,
Sure.
but it's kind of like a simplification of the schedule of the calendar to make it so that it works for anyone, whether it be a 4-year-old. We literally have kids as young as 2, by the way, using Goalie,
Oh,
um, all the way up to an adult, really. We have neurotypical adults using Goalie for physical therapy now, where their physical therapist recorded videos of some stretch exercises. And so what they're saying is, okay, let's do this type of stretch, and you hold your arm like this, and I'm going to hold this position for 30 seconds, and then we'll move on to the next one.
and you've
So
got the clock going and all
yeah,
that.
exactly.
I think this is amazing. One of the things that is percolating in my marketing mind here is the fact that this could be an app software for just about everybody. But I know it's been developed for those neurodiverse kids. What percentage of the population is estimated to be neurodiverse?
Yeah, so to be scientific about it, the closest estimates that we have it come from the CDC at 6 to 7 million kids and something like 9 million adults.
Wow.
Um, and the prevalence specifically of autism is growing substantially. Nobody
Yes.
really knows why. There's some portion of that surely is because we as a society are just more sensitive to autism, where maybe 20 years ago they would have said, oh, this is just a weird kid.
Yeah.
And today we're saying, no, actually his brain's wired a little differently. He learns differently and interprets things differently.
And
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 so we'll
most
put a label on it.
and many people who are on the spectrum are not only bright, they're extremely bright.
Well, that's the beauty of it is
Yeah.
because their brain's wired differently, that also makes them better artists in some cases, better musicians, better software engineers. A lot, in particular, a lot of software engineers are kind of known to have Asperger's, which is on the autism spectrum. Um, yeah, it turns out when you think differently, you could solve a lot of the world's problems.
Well, maybe we should install all these people into world leader roles, and we get on with a nice, safe, healthy world, and we all get along. Yay! Um, the the with school, with summer, and we're changing again. Okay, the old normal, kids would go to school at either 8 or 9 o'clock. They'd come home at 2 or 3. The last year and a half, kids have been learning for the most part in some kind of internet learning system. Is this going to affect either adversely or positively kids who are neurodiverse?
You mean going back to school?
Going back to school. I mean, and now having a summer vacation where they've had that regimen for the last year and a half. Now it's, hey, it's playtime right now, and we're getting ready for September and going back to school.
I think for the overwhelming majority of them, it'll be positive. And not only that, it'll be positive for their parents, which I don't know which is more
Yes.
important, right? Because the parents, uh, like their mental health matters too.
Oh, absolutely. And well, I know that the number of people, parents who are homeschooling right now is growing or has grown, and we've all been homeschooling during this last year and a half. Those of us who have kids at home, I think that it's they can go back to school now, right?
Yeah.
And
I
what?
think parents are going to breathe a sigh of relief, just like you did.
Yeah. And what about the social aspect of this? A lot of kids with different forms of autism, depending on where they are on that spectrum, they are they may or may not have social skills. Can Goalie help develop social skills? Because I think that's probably equally important to learning math or learning to brush your teeth.
Well, we have a part of our software called behavior skills training, which is a protocol in which therapists use to teach kids social skills. It's one of many protocols. But the software itself doesn't do the job, right? The software is really one tool in the tool belt of a therapist and a parent.
Got it.
So I would say the short answer is no. There's no replacement for just practice with people. With that said, I feel this is my personal opinion. There's no science or evidence around goalie around this. Just watching the nieces and nephews in my family, I feel like they've gotten to know their neighbors much better. I feel like their social life at this point hasn't been diminished. Now, they're not sitting in a classroom with 25 other kids, right?
Right.
So that's got to be a skill in of itself. But it's not like it's not like they're just locked up at home with their parents. They, they the kids that I interact with seem to have found new friends.
Yeah, exactly. And having only 25 people in a class would be a blessing in many parts of the country. Um, where is Goalie going? What do you see happening in its future?
So right now, our tools are largely for younger kids, um, and we're focusing mostly on ADHD and autism. ADHD, autism, and sensory processing disorder. Those are the three areas. And so I would say, if you've got a kid who where like the parent feels like they need to nag a lot to get basic things done, and you're kind of wondering why are they not able to do something independently. Goalie currently fills that gap for parents and gives them kind of a system to work inside of. I think where we're going is helping more for teenagers and growing with our customers. We're now at the point where we have customers that bought Goalie when their kid was 10, and they said, okay, my son loves this. He's really dependent on it. We've got good systems inside of Goalie. But this device doesn't look cool anymore. I need to get him a real cell phone. Uh, you, how do we get to the next level? And so a couple of months ago, we actually released an Android and iOS app so that they could stop using our dedicated device, and those kids could graduate onto their own cell phone. And so over time, I think we're going to start developing more and more tools to help teens, young adults, and eventually seniors as well that need help, just staying on track and making sure things get done in a really basic, straightforward way. We'll be building out more tools for them.
If people are interested in learning more about Goalie, what is the website?
Getgoalie.com. That's GetGoally.com. In our service is really straightforward. It's a monthly subscription. There's no contracts, and it's super low risk. We help everybody get on board. If you're thinking, oh well, I'm not so tech savvy or something like that, we'll schedule a Zoom call with you. You need to know how to use Zoom. There's some kind of, you need to have a Wi-Fi connection. You need to be able to use Zoom. But we do a lot to just get families started and help them get off the ground. We know that new software can be intimidating, but
And
there's
you're
no
based.
risk. If it doesn't work, they send it back and no hard feelings.
Oh, that's great. That's great customer service. Um, and you're based in Denver, but you can help people really because of Zoom throughout the world.
Yeah, we now have customers in Australia and the UK and all over the place. we've really been surprised during the pandemic where orders have been coming from. But most of our customers are U.S. and Canada. Um, that's really our in our backyard.
Got it. Uh, and Sasha, last question, and that is, will you come back as you guys develop more and more?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think that um, in a year or so we'll have a lot more interesting functionality for adults and seniors, and it'd be really interesting to talk about it in the journey that we go through as we learn about their needs.
Well, don't forget us here at Late Night Health, and don't make it a year. Get on
Thanks,
the,
Mark.
get on the stick. We need this stuff now.
Let's do it.
Uh, we've been talking with the CEO of Goli, and that's Sasha Stern. Uh, and you can get more information. We've had it up throughout our interview, but it's getgoli.com. And Sasha will be back. I'm Mark Allen. This is Late Night Health. We'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.